All right, everyone. So we're going to finalize our SolidityATL course with our last session, session 8. In this agenda, we're going to go through a few things. We're going to talk about one bug that we did, one bug / vulnerability that we did want to talk to you all about, which is an unexpected ETH vulnerability and things that can happen when you send contracts unexpected ETH. Next, we're going to jump out of vulnerabilities and talk a little bit more about the auditing space and the security space in general, and talk about Web3 technical careers. We're going to talk a little bit about auditing with private individuals versus contests. And when I say private individuals, I mean as if you are a private auditor or you have a private team, we're going to talk more about how you go about that versus a contest. And then lastly, we're going to finish off with our SolidityATL audit squad and talk about those opportunities. All right, so let's talk about module 1, which is unexpected ETH and the vulnerabilities that could occur when you send a contract unexpected ETH. So we're going to do a high-level overview of this, and also this is not just in speaking to sending a contract unexpected ETH. This could also be on being on the receiving end of receiving unexpected ETH. So again, we're going to do a high-level overview of this vulnerability. We're going to talk about a simple code example / snippet. Then we're going to do a real-world hack / walkthrough. And then we're going to, of course, go through the code smells you can use to sniff out these unexpected ETH type of issues. All right, so let's look at a high-level overview. So there are unintended side effects that can arise when a contract receives ETH in a way it doesn't account for. Contracts can be force sent ETH even when there is no fallback or receive function, and these can cause issues. So if you think a little bit more about some things we learned when diving deep into the EVM, there are ways for contracts to receive ETH outside of the fallback or the receive function, and this can be due to a self-destruct. When you call a self-destruct within a contract and you point the receiving address of those funds to a contract that, let's say, doesn't receive ETH in a fallback or receive function, it will still receive that ETH. So it's a unique way to force send ETH to contracts. So this is an interesting case that could actually happen if you have a contract that uses its balance, but you try to prevent it from receiving ETH via fallback or receive function. So this is something you must keep in mind when reviewing contracts and when writing your own code. All right, so we're going to take a look at a simple code walkthrough. In this example, we are able to send ETH directly to a contract instead of using the deposit function, which will cause the message sender's balance to be invalid. So pause the video and just take a look at this for a second. All right, so unpause and walk through this with me. So we have our locked ETH contract. We have a mapping to a balance called user balances. And every time you deposit ETH, your user balances for the address that's sending this balance will be incremented by the message.value. So let's say I were to use this deposit function to deposit 5 ETH. Anytime you look at the user balance for my address, it would show the 5 ETH. Now, if you can think about this, there are interesting ways to still send this contract a message value without having to call this deposit ETH function. And like we said, there's no fallback or receive function that will accept this ETH, but we could still call a self-destruct on another contract, which would send the ETH in that contract to here. And the balance of this contract will not represent a complete total of all of the addresses that called this deposit ETH function. So that is indeed a bug, and that can cause issues later down the line. Hence, this is just an example that we wanted to use to show you all, but this is what we're talking about when you send ETH to a contract and how it could, fudge up some numbers and some state variables that you are tracking. Another angle to look at this is there's a deposit ETH function, but there's no ability to withdraw. I know we talked about the fact that we're really talking about sending unexpected ETH, but another vulnerability that I'd like to just throw in there is the inability to withdraw ETH when there is unexpected ETH deposited into that contract. So if we had some type of ability for the deposited money to be withdrawn, that would be a way for us to combat, an unexpected ETH bug, because we've received unexpected ETH, we could withdraw it and return it to its rightful owner. So this is a case that is also an interesting vulnerability that you will definitely find in a lot of smart contracts these days that beginner auditors should be catching. All right, so we're going to do a short hack walkthrough. In this example, we're not going to take a look at DeFi Hack Labs, but we're going to take a look at an old school bug that happened with this project called Lockdrop. You can look this up and run through the code yourself as well. But what we're going to call out here is the exact place where this vulnerability was. So all you need to really know about Lockdrop is this was some type of protocol that had some type of locking mechanism. If you called lock, it would create, if you needed to lock something, you'd create a new ETH lock contract, and then you would lock this contract. I believe it was some type of older model of staking. So you create the ETH lock contract here, and then you ensure the lock contract has all ETH or it fails. Pause this video and see if you could find the vulnerability in this code. Okay, jumping back into it, the issue here is a few things. One is because this assert address lock address balance is equals message value can be exploited with a denial of service issue, and also to train that in, the first reason is it starts right here. It creates an ETH lock contract. For those of you who may not know, we didn't really cover this in our EVM section, but contract addresses can be deterministic, especially when you use like the owner, the value, and unlock time. So what happens here is a contract can be deterministic, and someone could theoretically send funds to the lock address before it's created, and that would work. You can send value, you can send ETH to contracts externally owned accounts before someone actually uses them. So sorry about that. If we go back to this, the bug here is that this lock address is deterministic, and someone could send ETH to that address before it's created. And what would happen here is it would create a denial of service issue because this line of code right here would fail. So this is something to take a look at if you have your free time to look into this Lockdrop contract. The fix here is that you would say assert address lock address dot balance is greater than or equal to message.value. And the reason for that is because if it's equal to, it's fine. And then if it's greater than, which like let's say we send some ETH to that determined address, it wouldn't cause any issues. It's fine. It's greater than or equal to that message.value. So that's something that you would do to fix this vulnerability. But this is a cool and interesting denial of service vulnerability that was available in this Lockdrop contract. All right, so now we're going to take a look at some unexpected ETH code smells. So what you're going to want to do first is pay close attention to contracts that use this .balance. There may be a strict requirement that doesn't account for unexpected ETH. We saw this in our Lockdrop example. It used a balance. It wasn't this .balance, but it used the balance of a contract that could have unexpected ETH sent to it, and it used a strict equality. Next, your logic should assume that a contract is empty or will remain empty. Um, you're you're not that your logic should assume. You need to watch out for logic that assumes a contract is empty or will remain empty. The reason for this is because if your contract does receive a balance and you expected it or assumed for it to remain empty, this can cause some issues within your protocol logic or your contract logic. Also, logic that checks that the balance of a predetermined contract address. We kind of talked about this already again. Same with the Lockdrop. This is not a this.balance case, but this was the check of a predetermined contract address. So these are just some things you might want to look at and test for when reviewing code that uses when reviewing code that could potentially receive ETH. At the end of the day, you want to check if it's using this.balance for the logic. How could that be affected if it received ETH? Checking if the developer is assuming that the contract should be empty or remain empty. And then lastly, if they're sending to a predetermined contract address, what would happen if there was, let's say, value sent to that predetermined contract address before it was created? All right, so now we're going to take a look at Module 2, which is going to talk more about Web3 technical careers. We're going to first touch on developers and what they can do in their careers. Then next, we're going to hit security researchers and analysts and what kind of jobs that they can get within the Web3 space. In terms of all of these technical opportunities, we're going to talk about how you can build your brand. And then lastly, we will touch on networking and which communities you should be a part of. So we're going to first talk about some Web3 developer careers. First, we have smart contract dev, which is a smart contract developer. These are developers who are typically writing Solidity code. You may be writing in Viper if you know Python, but that's the career opportunity that you can take if you know Solidity very well and have development experience. Next is a just blockchain developer. Essentially, you will be doing anything related to front ends, back ends, as well as smart contract development. These are people who are kind of well-rounded, and we're going to touch on full stack, but these are people who are full stack plus blockchain. You're very familiar with the EVM. You're very familiar with how blockchains work. So this is what a blockchain dev would be doing. You have your backend devs. So these are folks who are building the backend of a dApp or app. And I know some people say the backend is smart contracts or Solidity, but the backend could also equate to different databases, various APIs you may need within your application. So backend developers, even the backend developers that don't know Solidity are still highly needed. You have your front end developers, so these are people who are building the front ends of applications. These are the things that users are directly interacting with, that they are directly clicking on, the way the buttons look, the way that the application is laid out. That's what this front end developer is using. Usually that can be in React or Node.js. So these are some of the skill sets that a front end developer would need to have. Experience with JavaScript, and just various frameworks that you would need to build the front end of a dApp. Next, we have full stack developers. So these are people who are all honestly well-rounded. They may not be specifically a blockchain dev or full stack blockchain dev, but they may have the ability to build front ends, back ends, be able to stand up some middleware, knowing how to stand up some APIs. These are the developers who can do the whole gambit and honestly build almost everything you would need for your application. And then we have solution architects. These are people who are architecting how the specific solution will work, whether it's a blockchain dApp or maybe an application that interacts with some blockchain solution. So your solution architects may not be doing a lot of hands-on for writing code, but they are definitely the brains behind how the code is architected, how things are built, how different systems plug and play and interact with each other. These people are very important with how a specific DApp or protocol is being built. All right, moving on to Web3 security researchers. Um, from a Web3 security researcher standpoint, there's plenty of opportunities that you can take. You can work in a traditional firm. This is, for example, working with a company like OpenZeppelin or Trail of Bits. You can also do public contests and bug bounties. For if you haven't done a public contest before or heard of them, you should have by this point. But if you're interacting with a site like Code4Arena, Sherlock, CodeHawks, and bug bounties would be sites like Immunify. Next, you could either be an independent researcher that works on a team. So if, for example, you are someone who has done well in public contest and there's a smaller team that is willing to take you on and to give you a slice of the pie when researching with them and finding bugs in various protocols, this is kind of the route you would take. It's somewhere in between like a traditional firm and working on like within about for a bug bounty. It's like right there. It's a sweet spot right there in the middle because a small team doesn't act like a traditional firm. They're a lot more agile. They're definitely much smaller. And oftentimes these teams may participate in bounties together, but they also may be doing private audits for people. So next, you can also specialize in incident response and things like on-chain monitoring. If you ever heard of Forta, they really focus specifically on this case, and I know there's a few others out there, but incident response and on-chain monitoring is a very important topic, especially if there is a ongoing hack. You want to make sure that your team is well prepped and knows how to handle these situations, but also you want to be able to monitor the on-chain activity so you can know how to handle these cases. So this is only a subset of the opportunities that you could take as a Web3 security researcher, but these are all awesome opportunities that you may be shooting for when jumping into this space. All right, so now we're going to talk about Web3 security analyst. Oftentimes, this can be interchangeable between Web3 security researcher or Web3 security reviewer. Honestly, you may hear a few different names, but this more so speaks to you're working in the Web3 space, but you may have a little bit more Web2 expertise. So we're going to just talk about what this looks like when you are a security analyst and you have some Web3 skills. So there's the case of working with traditional firms. Let's say you want to work with Coinbase, who is still technically they're Web3 company, but in a sense they're still very traditional in terms of how they're set up. They're publicly traded. From what I understand, they still operate like a similar to a traditional firm, and maybe that's wrong. Please, if you're from Coinbase, let me know if this is a wrong assumption. But just giving an example, you may be a Web 2 security analyst with some Web 3 experience and exposure, and you can be a security analyst working for Coinbase, for example, like we were saying, and maybe you want to help with some front-end monitoring. You are familiar with working in a SOC or security operations center, and you have some experience there, but you would also like to give that experience to a Web 2 company that's very Web 3 focused. Again, Web 2 companies are highly interested in the Web 3 space, so there are various companies out there that are specifically focused on threat intelligence and making sure someone knows how to do forensics within the Web3 space. Let's say you are a malware analyst and one of the operations or one of the operators from a malware group, let's say it's like Lockbit or somebody or Lapsus. So let's say it's a specific group or a threat actor that is doing some on-chain activities, well, even though you're at a Web2 company, you may have to have some Web3 experience. So that's why they may hire Web3 security analyst or some type of analyst with this kind of experience. Next, we have governments and institutions. Governments are heavily involved in the Web3 space. If you've ever seen how I believe it's Chainalysis, they do a lot of work with federal agents when trying to track various malicious activities. So again, you may have that Web3 exposure to be able to be able to work with these governments and institutions. Like the SEC, for example, if you wanted to work for the SEC, they would still need someone to understand what's happening on chain. And these are some jobs that are available. And then also just project bounties in general from a security standpoint. You may have a company who wants a one-off freelance thing done. Let's say they want a security dashboard built in Dune, or let's say they want something to be tracked with using MetaSleuth. This is a sleuthing tool. This is an auditing based course, but just introducing you to some sleuthing type of stuff. People may pay you to do this kind of work. If you've ever seen, Zach XBT, he does a lot of stuff where he will track these threat actors and he may be able to expose them or help companies see where their funds are flowing. So that's definitely someone with Web3 experience, but he also has traditional, security analyst, Web2 experience as well to be able to track these people, put two and two together, and come up with ideas for what has happened to someone's funds. So these are some things that you could do if you are a security analyst, security researcher who has some Web2 experience, but also you have gained some Web3 knowledge as well. All right, so we're going to talk about networking and communities when building your career in the Web3 space. All right, so first question, why is networking important? This is not specific to Web3. This is honestly a valuable lesson for you in your life if you haven't learned it. But your network is your net worth. That's something that was taught to me in business school. And it's important because your network can help you get into these spaces and help you get these opportunities that you may not be able to get just by yourself alone. If you leverage, I won't say leverage, but if you use the resources available to you, you could definitely further where you go in this space. But also, if you're just looking to land a job, your network can help you do that. So this is why your network is important, and you need to make sure that you are trying to broaden your network within the Web3 space. And if you say you don't have a network, you are lying, because you have the SolidityATL community. You have developers, you have auditors, people who are already in our channels that are willing to help you and help you get placed in jobs. And even if we don't have those job opportunities ourselves to give out, we can definitely point you in the right directions and maybe pass your name along to someone that we know. So how are communities helpful? Like I was saying, we have the SolidityATL community. There's OpenSense, there's Securium, Cifrin, and CodeHawk's family has an awesome community. Code4Arena, Sherlock. There are plenty of Discords, plenty of communities out there who are willing to, and also I forgot to mention Guardian Audits. I don't know if I mentioned Owen Thurm and his community. There are various security communities, development communities out there who will be willing to help you, and that's where you can grow your network. And then how can you help a community? This is a very important thing to cover because a lot of people come into this space and they do a lot of asking, but they never try to reciprocate that help or help others. If you are someone who is just starting out, you could still find a way to be useful and provide help to whoever is helping you. Let's say you want to be paired with, a senior level auditor on a contest. Well, why would they choose you to be someone to partner with if, you're a newbie, you haven't done anything, and especially if someone who doesn't have the time to spend helping you, maybe you can offer some type of help to the senior auditor. Are you good at maybe, let's say, writing a report? You may not understand all the bugs per se, but let's say you are great at writing and you have this ability to provide to the senior level auditor. Are you going to offer up your time to do some simple admin tasks or things that the senior level auditor doesn't want to do? So this is one thing we definitely have to share with you is if you're reaching out to folks, you still need to be offering some type of help to them in some way. Not all the time. If you reach out to myself or Robert, we are typically available to help you. But it's best to come with help in mind when you are asking for help. And then how can you help a community? Say in the same vein, as you get to a level where you are understanding things, you understand how these bugs work, you're climbing up the leaderboards and you're starting to make money, you're starting to get a job, you're making progress. Help others behind you who are also in the struggle. You need to be pulling people up with you as you move along. So if you are the one who is progressing in your career in this space, help others who are just getting started out. Do things like create free courses. You can participate with SolidityATL and be a mentor or be a teacher, help in creating some of these videos that we're doing. So this is how you can help your community. Make sure you keep this in mind as you progress within the ecosystem. Okay, so now we're going to talk about building a brand. Why is it important to build a brand? Well, it's important to build a brand because you can use this brand to be placed in awesome career opportunities. You can also build your brand to become a wonderful entrepreneur. So if you are a security researcher that's finding bugs, you're building your brand, you're out there tweeting, you may be able to build enough audience. See Pashav, see Bytes, these folks who have actually done this, and you can build this audience to a point where you have your own business and can make your own money without having to rely on a company. And like I said, you're not just building the brand to be an entrepreneur. You can use this to be placed in companies or to work with various startups. So it's good that you want to focus on building your brand as you're, like we said, climbing through the ladder in this ecosystem. Another ways to do this is to build and learn in public. If you are telling people on Twitter or various communities, various ecosystems, what you're building and what you're learning, people will love to see this, and also they're going to remember you. If you're doing something like my friend who built impersonator.eth or impersonator.xyz, I forgot what the full name of it is, but he's out there building cool tools that security researchers are using, and we will always remember who he is. And if he were to ever come to anyone for a job, or if he were to ever start anything on his own, it would be quite easy because we have seen his products. So this is the side effect of building and learning in public. Other ways to build your brand is to teach others and just share the knowledge, like we're doing with SolidityATL, like Patrick Collins does, like Owen Thurm does, like people from Securium do. They have built that brand because they decided to be to provide value to the ecosystem by sharing their knowledge, and in return, their brand is going to be built. Next thing when building your brand is to be consistent. You want to make sure you are constantly posting. You want to make sure you're constantly teaching others. Your voice is being heard almost on a daily basis. It kind of is going to instill your brand in other people's brain when they see you and your content. And then also, just take a value add approach. You don't always have to worry about, at least in the beginning, you don't always have to worry about making money and, are you getting all the value from building your brand? You need to worry about adding value to others. If you add value to other people, other ecosystems, your brand will definitely be built. So if some people do focus on the money, and that's okay. But you should be focusing on adding value to others, because once you can do that, you will be able to bring in an audience, and then in return, you can create some type of opportunity for yourself or bring in some type of profits through this approach. All right, in this next module, we're going to talk about the differences between private audits and then contest. So we're going to cover what is auditing. Honestly, you should know by now, but we're going to do a final hoorah on what exactly is auditing, and then talk about some approaches to take during these audits. We're going to talk about audit contest platforms, and then also the audit process, just like the general process you would take when doing an audit. And then lastly, we're going to finish off with bug bounty hunting and maybe some resources you can use there. All right, so what is auditing? Auditing in Web3 is the act of finding security vulnerabilities in smart contracts. You have things like scope, deadlines, skill sets. These things are important when determining the time allocation for an audit. So what that means is when you have an audit, let's say, let's take us out the scene of a contest. Let's talk about a private audit. Let's say a protocol comes to me and they need me to audit their protocol. Well, first there's going to be a scope. There may be a specific amount of lines of code that I need to review. There's also going to be deadlines. They may be trying to deploy within a 2-3 week or maybe a month time frame. And then also, depending on your skill sets, this could determine how much you should allocate for an audit. If you're someone who is a newbie and you have the opportunity to audit a protocol, your skill sets are not as advanced, so you may want to allocate more time for this audit. Instead of doing it in 1 week, you may want to spend 3 weeks on this audit. And of course, if the pricing looks right, that could be the difference between making sure you're allocating the right time to your audits. All right, so we're going to talk about audit contest approaches. So when you're doing an audit contest, you may take a different approach than doing, let's say, a private audit. So let's look at a contest approach. If you are a beginner, you're definitely going to want to focus on things like gas optimizations, informationals, and those low findings. The reason for this is because your understanding of these smart contracts may not be to the point where you can get those high and those critical bugs. It's definitely possible, so I'm not going to say do not shoot for a high vulnerability. But when you're when you're just starting out, you may want to focus on some of these lower hanging fruits. And then this can also help with your confidence. When you find these things, you will be able to see that you actually can find issues and bugs in code. And this is a great thing to add when motivating you on your journey. Next, we're going to talk about, if you're a little bit more advanced or you have the ability to focus on high and mediums to maximize your time and your payouts. If you are at the level where you can identify highs and mediums, I'm not saying you shouldn't spend these times on lows and gas optimizations, but in these contests, those highs and those mediums is what really brings home those higher payouts, especially those unique high and mediums. If you have a unique high, you're definitely going to get paid some good money. So that's what you want to focus on if you really want to maximize your time and get paid the most. And then also, if you're not worried about finding anything and you're not worried about your payout, you're not worried about your time, and you just want to learn, use judging as an opportunity to maximize your learning. Judging on contests like Sherlock or contest platforms like Sherlock can help you out so much because you could see all of these submissions that these auditors are making, and you can learn from each of these submissions. So these are just a light overview of some of the audit contest approaches. There are definitely other resources out there from other auditors who share these approaches, as well as some different ones. So make sure you look into the ecosystem, you join other communities, and hear what other people's approaches are. All right, so let's look at private audit approaches. This is something that I didn't mention in the last slide, but um, this actually applies to both private and audit contest. You are going to make sure you search for all types of vulnerabilities and gain a deeper understanding of the code, as you will likely have more time. So the as you will likely have more time is speaking to private audits, but the key point I wanted to highlight here is this: gaining a deeper understanding of the code. This is something that you're going to want to do in contest, but more so in private audits, because in a contest, you are not really held liable if you miss a bug or two. This is something that we know of and that happens in contests. People may hop on for a few hours and do what they can do. That just helps get more eyes on various protocols. But when you're doing a private audit, you are the only one that is responsible for securing that code, at least at that point in time. So you're going to want to make sure you get a very, very deep understanding of that code. You can't just look through it like you're doing a contest and spend a few hours in a day thinking that that's enough. You should be dedicating your full working hours, making sure you're trying to find these vulnerabilities. So it requires a little bit more effort by gaining this deep understanding of this code. And then also you're going to have more time. In a private audit, you could have a time frame of 3 weeks, 4 weeks. You may even have a little bit over a month at times, depending on the scope of the project. So make sure you heed those words wisely, because you don't want to be someone that's responsible for a vulnerability in a private audit. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen. This definitely does, but it's likelier. It's more unlikely to happen if you are, or it's more unlikely to happen if you are spending as much time as possible really understanding everything and finding all those bugs. And again, I'm not saying that a private audit is going to secure you from everything. If you do have a private audit, you should definitely have other security researchers look at it. You should have bounty contests, and you should be hosting things like Code for Sherlock, Code Hawk contest when looking at your code. It's not a one and done. Um, Lastly, you're going to want to make sure you focus on providing your clients with a great service. This is very crucial, because in a contest, it's kind of touch and go. You kind of drop your findings in there and you dip off. But with a private audit, you have to be more intimate with your clients, in a sense that you're going to need to communicate with them on a daily. You're going to have to know how to communicate with them. You're not going to be working with people. You're not going to be working only with developers. You may be working with project managers. So you need to know how to carry yourself in a sense that you can interact with various clients and also give them a great service. Your reports are clean. The process of working with them is very efficient. They feel like they had a great time working with you. So this is something that's very important, and an approach you should be taking when doing a private audit. All right, we're going to talk about audit processes. So this speaks to contest. This speaks to private audits. This is just a general process that we may take, for example, when we are auditing code. So the first thing you're going to want to do is set up notes and an audit template. This is essentially your note-taking sheet for as you review through the code. Some people use Solidity Visual Developer, and I forgot what tool it is, but it allows you to write in line comments that can be added to your audit reports. But you're basically going to want to make sure you have this process set up so that when you're reading code, you can easily write a quick note. It gets added to the appropriate place. And then if you find a bug, you have a template that you can use when writing your report. Next, you're going to want to skim the code. So you're jumping into the code. You need to skim it, understand what it's doing a little bit. And then this is going to help you as you read the docs. Both of these things, skimming the code and reading the docs, skimming over the docs, is going to help you start a threat model. By this time, you should understand what the code is doing at a high level. I'm not saying you should have a very deep understanding of what this code is doing, but you should have a high level understanding to the point where you can start your own threat model and begin mapping out some potential threats / how this architecture is working. Next, you're going to want to read the code a little bit more. You're going to have to read the code in a deeper sense, because this is not just going to be, oh, I'm skimming it and reading through to understand some parts of the code. You're going to want to do a deep dive. So that's what I meant to say is you're reading the code, but you're doing a deep dive into the code. You're understanding what's happening line by line. You're doing call traces. You're doing function tracing. You're understanding what state changes are happening. And as you're doing this, you're gaining this deeper understanding of the code. You should be continuously updating your threat model and some potential threats that you could see happening within that code. Through this process, you should be taking notes. You should be jotting down your findings and kind of formulating these as you are gaining this deep understanding and as you are finding these vulnerabilities. Again, as you find these vulnerabilities, you're going to want to make sure you document them however you like. We use an audit template, and I believe we'll share this in the Discord, but I believe I added an audit template to the course last year that people use in contest. But you can use this audit template and document those vulnerabilities there, and use some of the notes that I have in that audit template to make sure your findings are worded appropriately, and they're just massaged into the manner that a developer is going to like or understand. In this last one, we're going to finish off with bug bounty hunting. So, bug bounty hunting, you might want to take a different approach than contest and private audits. And of course, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be auditing, but there's going to be a few differences when you're doing a bug bounty versus private audits and contest. First thing is, a lot of these bug bounties are going to be on code that is live. It is not a before deployment. You're going to have to learn how to find these vulnerabilities in live code. There may be an issue with some state that's within that code that may need some type of fix, or there may need to be a redeployment or upgrade. So you need to understand how to find those vulnerabilities in live code, learning how to use Etherscan and those tools available to decompile a contract. I'm sorry, that's going to be later. Not to decompile a contract, but to see that verified code on chain and then read through it, bring it down so that you can throw comments in there and play around with the code yourself. Next, you're going to have to understand how to fork a chain. This is something that you can do with Foundry and other tools like Tenderly. You can do this with Tenderly and Hardhat, forking a chain and then running some tests. You're going to have to know how to navigate on-chain contracts, storage, and events. Like I was saying, this is live code, so there may be some weird things happening after this contract has been deployed that you may want to bring up to developers of the protocol. And then lastly, you're going to have to know how to interact with some tooling. So this includes EVM's storage viewer. This is going to include bytecode decompilers. And again, I had already mentioned Tenderly, but these are some of the tools you may need when working with bug bounty hunting. And another one, I believe, is the methods database. So there are databases for some of these common methods that these function signatures are for, but may not have been identified. Like, you may not be able to identify this on Etherscan. You can plug it into this database, and then it'll tell you what that method could be. And these are great tools when learning how to decompile bytecode, that is deployed on chain, but you may not have like a verified contract with its Solidity code. So these are some things you're gonna have to know how to interact with when you're doing your bounty hunting. All right, in this last module, we're going to talk about SolidityATL's audit squad. First, we're going to run through the purpose of audit squads, how to join, the next contest time frame, some expectations about joining Audit Squad, and then finally, we're going to send out a course survey for everyone to complete after completion of the course. All right, so let's talk about the purpose of audit squads and what exactly is an audit squad. So at Solidity ATL, we have created this concept called audit squads, which allows us as auditors to congregate in a Discord channel or at least in Discord to participate in audit contests together. So at this current point in time, people struggle with finding teammates and joining a group to learn and to do audits together. And that's essentially what audit squads are. It's a space for auditors to join in and essentially find a team and participate in an audit contest. It helps get rid of the nerves if you're a newbie. And if you're someone experienced, it helps you learn more about how other auditors approach several audits. And then at the same time, it allows you to give back by teaching younger and other auditors who are coming into the space to learn about auditing. So, like you said, it's providing a space for aspiring auditors to audit, learn, and grow together much faster than they would alone. This allows for you. This also allows for you to join future private audit opportunities with Solidity ATL. Solidity ATL is planning on rolling out private audits, and so if you are already a part of audit squads at the current point in time, you will likely be selected to do private audits with us as we start bringing in more clients. All right, so we're going to talk about how to join audit squads. So you're going to have to do one of the two things, complete one of these options below. So you need to either complete half of the Solidity ATL homeworks or participate and find bugs in an audit contest. I believe we're going to cap it at least 3 medium bugs. This may change, so you can kind of jump in the Discord and show your results as we go along. But the idea is that you have participated and found bugs in prior audit contest, and then also you need to complete half of the Solidity ATL homeworks. Once you tag us in the Discord with proof of completion, then you will be good to go. You'll be free to join an audit contest. We're doing this just to make sure that you will at least put in the work. It's not like you're coming in and expect everyone else to find bugs and not put in the work. So we need to have some form of proof that you're willing to put in the work. And by you either completing half of the Solidity ATL homeworks or finding a few bugs in audit contests will show that you're serious to work with other auditors who are also serious. All right, let's talk about contest timeframes. So when you join the audit squads, essentially we're planning to participate in an audit contest in early January or in February. So this can sorry, it's going to start in early January, ranging to February. We're trying to shoot for that. This may change, so we'll make sure to provide updates in the Discord. Also, feel free to share any upcoming contests in our Discord as you're completing the course. Actually, at the very moment, it's December 19th. There's an audit squad's team joining a contest at the moment. So honestly, once you join in, you can participate in audits, you can propose various contests, and you may be able to form a team. But the official time frame for us to do a contest for those who have completed the course is in early January and February. All right, let's talk about some expectations. These are going to be expectations required of everyone participating in audit contests with audit squads. The first one being mandatory weekly team syncs. So, for example, if you have a 3-week audit contest, you need to make sure you're meeting with the team at least 3 times and once a week. This is important because you need to collaborate about the things you're working on or potential bugs, maybe issues you're running into. But also, this is a great thing to do because many teams actually do this whenever they're working on private audits. Next, you should be giving daily status updates. This doesn't have to be via a meeting. This can just be via some notes or some comments. Um, the three things we want you to focus on when you're giving these updates is to describe your current focus, talk about some questions or ask some questions, and then also list some blockers that you may be having. So these could be issues you're running into. And then lastly, do a 3 to 4 um, sentence summary of your latest notes and just do a recap of that. So, and it doesn't have to be 3 to 4 sentences. It just needs to be a recap of what are some of your latest notes. Maybe you're working through a liquidity pool and you're evaluating if you can um, work on an edge case for that liquidity pool that could lead to a vulnerability. So this is just an example of, a quick recap of what you would provide in this update. You need to be participating and contributing at least 10 hours a week for these contests. Everyone is going to be working hard on this, so you should at least be contributing 10 hours a week when you're on audit squads. Some people may think that you can just join in and participate 1 hour, but if your teammates are putting in 20 and 30 hours on a contest and y'all are winning and actually making money, it's not right that you just came in and put in a 1 hour. So we require that everyone puts in at least 10 hours a week. And then at the end of the audit, you're going to have to participate in a retro. This is essentially you taking a recap of what did you find, and then what did you miss, and what are some ways you can improve, some lessons learned there. So these are the expectations for everyone whenever you all are participating in an audit contest on an audit squad. Not only is this good practice for you to get into a good flow for finding bugs and being a great auditor, but this is also going to prepare you for private audits with SolidityATL in the future. So there's a method to the madness here, and we really hope that you abide by all these expectations and respect your fellow teammates who are also putting in the time, putting in the effort, and the hard work. All right, and the last thing is completing the course survey. We're going to have the link for you dropped into the Discord. This is going to take you to a Google Forms where you're going to fill out a few questions that talk about the course and your experience. Please make sure you leave this course survey because it's very important that we get this feedback from you all. So not only that we can improve the course, but that we can just make it a better thing for the community. It's also good to show winnings. We want to see if someone believed that this course helped them on their journey. So this is going to help us make sure that the time we're putting into it is actually worth it. Remember, we're doing this free out of the kindness of our hearts, and we're taking time out of our day to put this knowledge out there. No paywall. It's not charged. So please do this course survey for us. It's gonna help. It's gonna help all of us in the long run. And that is it. We really hope that you all enjoyed the course. You all had a great time interacting with us, and we're looking forward to those of you who are staying and contributing and helping us build upon the next iterations for the course. We already have a few people who's signed up to also be instructors. We have a lot of people who've already signed up to be a part of audit squads, and the course isn't even over yet. So we're excited. We hope that you are excited, and hope that it was a great journey for us all. So thank you, and that concludes Solidity ATL's Web3 security course.